Right, we're here in an undisclosed location. We're going to learn all about truffles, the cultivation of truffles, how it's a sustainable superfood that we should be eating, from my good friend Zach and Stanley here. So where are we now then? So this is the field. This is the
so we own
this
and all this. This was just a field, and we planted all those trees in there 6 years ago, and they are all infected or inoculated with truffle spore. So hopefully we should find a first truffle within the next couple of years with a bit of luck. You get like the first couple of truffles and a few more the next year and so on. So from the time you find the first truffle, you probably won't have a sort of productive truffle wood for another 3-4 years. So usually about 10 to 12 years is when they really get going. All native trees, it's a mix of, it's 60% beech because that's the one that does best for English truffle in this area because they do really well on chalky soils like we have here. Truffle needs chalky alkaline soil or else it will never grow. And then 25% hazel, which also really good tree. And then the other 15% is a mix of lots of species, some which can also take truffles like lime and birch. And then there's a few in there, some bushes and stuff, that a few wild crab apples, that kind of thing, which are planted basically for more biodiversity and just to make the wood a nicer place to be. We do we do sort of family dinners up here, but then also like training sessions with chefs. And
obviously truffle's a really luxury item, right? But it's quite interesting that you have to plant so many trees to get a yield.
Yeah, so truffles are pretty much the only luxury item that you can enjoy with a completely clear conscience because they're so good for the environment. So to produce truffles, what do you have to do? You plant trees, because basically truffles are a fungus that grows off the roots of trees. And so in order to get them, you've got to plant thousands and thousands of trees. And you may never even get truffles because they're a very hard crop to grow. If they weren't, every farmer in the UK would be doing it right now. But even if you don't, you've done the benefit to the environment from planting all these trees that are sequestering all the carbon dioxide. And then they're so low impact because you don't put any chemicals on, you don't plough the fields, you don't use tractors, you don't use machinery, you just leave the trees alone. And then when they are producing, you hunt them, it's just a man or woman with a dog wandering around a field. So it's literally no impact. So really, I haven't seen an actual scientific study of it, but my guess would be that truffles are like 10 times better for the environment than they take away from the environment. So even if you're not eating local truffles, even if you're flying them around the world, that is a tiny, tiny bit of carbon footprint compared to that massive benefit you're getting from planting them. So really they're great for the planet and they're really good for you because they're really nutritious and they're obviously, you know, vegan friendly, and so to me they're such an exciting luxury thing for the future. Yeah, I'm really struggling to find a bad side to truffles, but I haven't yet.
The price?
Oh yeah, the price, yeah. Down you go, Stan. Basically, I grew up in Wiltshire, which I didn't know at the time was the UK's centre of truffle production, because the UK truffle industry had died out years before. Lived in Italy for a bit around the turn of the millennium when I was working in the music industry as a music producer, and fell in love with truffles. I had some friends out there that her family were truffle hunters and stuff. So totally fell in love with truffles. And then when I moved back to Wiltshire later in life, there were stories of this wood that had an amazing amount of truffles being found in. And no one really knew that truffles even grew in England at the time because the industry had been forgotten so long ago. And I was desperate I was like, wow, truffles in Wiltshire. And because I was such a truffle lover, I really wanted to try them. And then luckily got an introduction to the farmer through a friend of a friend. And then basically just got even more, became very close friends with him. And then started hunting the truffles with my dogs, which he'd only been feeling around under trees and trying to find them on his hands and knees before. So having dogs that, not these ones, the predecessors, these came later.
Was it the same dog?
So my original dog was 6 years old and I literally just told him to go and find a truffle, and he did. That was how hard it was because he was so clever and he kind of knew what we were doing. So he started finding loads of truffles. The record, he found 22 kilos of truffle in 1 hour once. And so obviously far more than I could eat or the farmer could eat. So I set up a business selling them. Yeah, we just set up this business selling English truffles to all the top restaurants. And then from there, like obviously the English truffle season's only one part of the year. So we went from just selling English truffles to working with very close partners that are hunters and growers all over the world. So we can supply truffles pretty much all year round now.
That's great.
How many dogs have you had?
So we've only had one before these. So Worcester was the original one, and then Stanley was a puppy. Just they crossed over briefly, so he managed to learn from the old guy, and he was an amazing truffle dog from the age of 6 months. Even he just grew old very young, and now he's 8 years old and still going really, really strong, very youthful. And then Freddie's the next one, who's got an amazing sense of smell, but is not as well behaved.
He's not got the work ethic, apparently.
No, exactly. He just mucks around a lot, but I think if you can get him in the mood, he can hunt really well. He did amazingly the other day, his first really successful hunt. He found a couple of kilos in a really short period and was so proud of himself. You could see him like just glowing with pride that finally he'd done the thing that his sort of big brother has always done so well. I just love black labs, basically, so I think that's the
so
reason
you don't need a
them.
Spanish poodle or whatever? Or the,
Lagotto Romano's like the traditional truffle dog, but actually when you travel the world you see very few of them. I mean, they can make great truffle dogs, but they're absolutely mental. They're like crazy dogs. They're not, wouldn't be my first choice for like a family member. So they are a really important part of the business, but they're also family members and really, you know, really close to us all and stuff. It's absolutely amazing watching them work. The dog, obviously everyone knows the dog has a much better sense of smell than a human, but also the really important part is the part of their brain that processes smells is 40,000 times bigger than the part of our brain that processes smells. So like a human, just like you walk into a room, you're like, oh, I can smell fresh bread, I can smell whatever. The dog, it's so much more complex, thousands of times more complex. They build mental maps of smell in their head so they can locate where smells are coming from, what they mean. I mean, as you probably know, dogs can smell if people have got cancer or COVID and things like that. So Stanley will just sniff around the wood, indicate where a truffle is, usually just with his nose, and then he'll look at me and sort of smile and say, here you go. If I can't see it immediately, then I'll say to Stan, show me the truffle, and he'll just sort of pour and sort of expose the truffle really carefully without damaging it.
So you have to teach them not to damage it, or do they ever like taste it and eat it? Or?
Yeah, and it's really easy to train them not to. I mean, they naturally like we said before, pretty much all animals like the smell of truffle, and they gladly eat them, but they learn not to quickly, and they prefer to get the dog treat that you give them. Every time they find a truffle, they get a little bit of treat, so they're happy with that. But yeah, a good truffle dog should never ever eat or harm a truffle at all. They really respect them and look after them. Yeah, so the woods we're actually hunting, so these woods we own, so we can bring you here. Even then, we'd rather you kept it quiet, obviously, the location. But the woods we're actually hunting in that are owned by other people, they don't really allow anyone else to come to because it's so secretive. Yeah. It's really, the whole truffle industry is built on trust and relationships, and that's why almost all truffle businesses are family businesses. He's literally obsessed with me, and when I go away, he just lies waiting for me. And then if there's any noise, he's like, is it him? Oh no, it's not him. You know, he's indifferent to the rest of the family, really. I get mails from people all the time that are training their dogs and they want advice and tips and stuff like that. But it's really weird. For some reason, truffles, they think you're just going to spend hours doing that. You know, it'd be literally like someone coming into your restaurant saying, can you give me cooking lessons for a couple of hours? And you'd be like, kind of trying to earn a living.
Well, you say a lot of in like Italy, they do tours, don't they? They'll do truffle hunting tours where they literally just bury it. And then...
Yeah, so the truffle hunting tours you go in Italy, everyone that says, oh, I've hunted truffles in Italy, like 99.9% of the time those will be fake, basically, because truffle hunters just don't take people to their woods for obvious reasons. Obvious. So, and no truffle hunter would take a big group of tourists off to some wood. So basically, they go and hide a little couple of truffles in a wood, they take you out, dogs find the truffles, and then you go back to their house and get sold loads of truffle products, and that's
truffle oil.
Kind of all truffle products are fake. They're all made with chemicals, like quite a nasty chemical called dithiapentane, which is actually poisonous if you drank a glass of it, but you put the tiniest milligram in, and that's got basically it's the chemical representation of one of the molecules that make up the smell of truffles. So truffles have over 200 flavour compounds, and that's why each truffle smells a bit different. Some smell stronger than others, but the variety of smells is amazing. To compare truffle oil to a truffle is like comparing a fresh strawberry to a strawberry flavoured kid's sweet. So the sweet will actually taste stronger. Truffle oil tastes much stronger than truffles. So that's why a lot of people that are used to truffle oil are disappointed when they try a truffle, because they think it's going to sort of blow their mind, when actually it's a much more complex but mild flavour. But infinitely more interesting and like exciting. So the truffle we find in England is the summer or autumn truffle. So basically the autumn is like a better version of the summer truffle. And they're native to the UK, but they're also native to most countries in Europe. So you find them even in the south of Sweden, and then all the way down through the whole of Europe, and then down to like even the Middle East. There's hundreds found in Iran. So they're quite tolerant of different climates. The winter truffle, or often known as the Perigord truffle, which is a more expensive and luxurious one than the summer autumn truffle, they are a bit fussier. So in the wild, the furthest north they're found is like the Loire River in France, and really the Mediterranean is their main sort of area. So the south of France, the north of Spain, north of Italy, but then they can also be produced in places like Australia that has a very similar climate to the south of France and the north of Spain. White truffles really are only found in the wild. They can't be cultivated yet, although people are trying and starting to slowly succeed. Truffle world moves so slowly, so even if people learn to cultivate them properly, it's going to be a couple of decades at least before they're widely available. And I kind of hope they're not, because it's exciting the way there's one truffle that still resists man's attempts to like beat nature and cultivate them. We sell about 5 tons of truffle a year at Wiltshire Truffles, and about sort of 200 kilos of that is English. So really that's about 1 in every 25 truffles we sell is English. And I'd love it if that percentage could be raised, you know, and we've got much more demand for English truffles than there are truffles, basically. Yeah. So the more we'd still probably sell 5 tons, but more and more of it could become English over the years. And you know, like it's not impossible that when my kids are running the business in 30 years time, because of climate change, there'll be more truffles in England than there will be in Southern Europe. Could be like, so we could literally be exporting them back down to Italy, which would be brilliant. And then, you know,
they'd hate that,
young Italian chefs would be like, you know, in my grandfather's day, the truffles used to grow here. And no, truffles are an English thing. You know? So that's what it could be like then.
But yeah, no, it's super inspiring, because it's like, you know, if you think about it as a growing industry, the more it grows, the more trees there are. And it's more carbon capture. It's great.
So beech and hazel are the main truffle production trees here. Truffles also grow well under oak. Globally, oak's probably the biggest tree used for truffles, but oak doesn't do well on our soil here in Wiltshire. It's too chalky. So they will grow, but they're kind of always a bit weak. They don't really get going on this particular.
How do you actually get the truffles into the roots?
Well, basically, growing truffles is you inoculate the roots of trees, and that essentially means just putting truffle spore, by which I mean truffles, because the truffle is in itself the spore, basically, the inside of a truffle, that's where the spore live. So you basically put the truffle onto the roots of the tree, and then just hope it's going to grow.
So the truffle that you put on the roots of the trees, that's the unusable truffle, right? Like the byproducts as such from your
so we basically use the truffles that can't be sold. So we'll often trim damaged bits off a truffle. I mean, as a chef, you're probably used to receiving a kilo of beautiful truffles, but for every one that looks like that, there's loads we find that have gone a bit soft already. They're kind of got mold on them. They're broken bits. You know, there's a lot of byproduct of truffles that aren't suitable for the kitchen. So we freeze all those and reuse them. And although we use them for inoculating new woods in proper conditions and doing it properly, we've got far more than we can use for that. So we literally just grind them all up into a sort of sludge with water and then spray it all around the trees. I mean, there must have been, you know, a few hundred kilos of truffle put onto these woods, really. Mad. So we very much hope they're going to pay us back some truffles, basically.
We're here with the team now. Thanks very much, Zach, for showing us around. We're going to cook some steaks, have some beers.
Right, do you want to get that beef on, big boy?
Yes, chef.
That's so good.
Thanks so much for having us, mate.
It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Really interesting.
Yeah, you can come as many times as you want, as long as you always bring the mushroom parfait.
And you give us free truffles, that seems to work, doesn't it?
No, you get the invoice later.
Thanks a lot, mate. We're going to have some amazing dairy cow cooked over this beautiful wood fire with some of Zach's Wiltshire truffles grated all over the top.